I hate Monster Hunter Wilds, not because of performance, but because it simply just isn't Monster Hunter. Hi, my name is C. I've been playing Monster Hunter for a long time now. It's a series that means a lot to me personally, and I want nothing more than to see the series keep on improving. I've played Freedom Unite, Monster Hunter Tri, and 3 Portable, Monster Hunter Rise, and Sunbreak, Monster Hunter World, and just recently, Monster Hunter Wilds. Monster Hunter, in my experience, has always been a very free gameplay experience. Stories are basically sidelined. You can do whatever you want to progress in the way that you want and set your own goals and personalize your experience. My favorite thing about starting a Monster Hunter playthrough is the feeling going from literal poverty, wearing shitty starting gear, no money for supplies, and even struggling to pay for pickaxes, to then progress step by step, little by little, to eventually fight some of the most coolest, most intimidating monsters ever designed, wearing gear you yourself have crafted, piece by piece, while carrying around potions and gadgets you've concocted and created yourself. It was all your hard work coming together to an ultimate battle between you and this giant monster standing in front of you. The downtime between hunts and the time for preparation is what makes the action and the hunt extremely thrilling, so why does modern Monster Hunter reject this idea? To understand this further, this is not just a problem with modern Monster Hunter, but modern AAA gaming as a whole. It focuses on the end result rather than the journey there. This is why we get games half-baked and not ready for launch being launched prematurely. Monster Hunter Wilds is a product of our current times, and the trend directly goes against what the Monster Hunter series is at its core: hunting monsters. You might think, hey, that's not true, we're still hunting monsters. I'd say even more so than the previous games, and you would be correct if hunting in its essence equated to fighting, but it isn't. It's just Monster Hunter, not Monster Fighter. Fighting is just one part of the process of hunting. The part where you hit the monster until it dies. Hunting requires knowledge of your prey. Hunting is about planning, prepping, and tracking, and then finally, after all the previous steps, the fight. If you focus on just the fight, Wilds introduces many flashy mechanics such as offset attacks, sneak attacks, power clashes, and most prominently, wounds and wound opening attacks. These on paper add flavor to the action and make the combat very satisfying, but all it really does is removing the respect the player has to give the monster. Now, what I mean is that with wounds, you can permanently be on the offensive. With a loop of knockdowns, you can score on the monster to prevent it from fighting back, allowing to completely decimate all but the most challenging monsters without much thought put into it. People like to compare the hunt of Monster Hunter to a dance between the monster and the hunter. While the terminology is too graceful for what is actually occurring, I agree with the concept. A dance needs 2 participants, both getting their own times to shine, and in our case, use their movesets. Guaranteed flinch and knockdowns from the wounds throws the power balance between the 2 dancers out the window, with the hunter only having to worry about their own movesets while unloading on the monster constantly without having to worry about the monster's moveset and power, because they essentially have no power over the hunter. This might sound fun on the surface. You might think, wow, I can use all these cool moves to destroy these stupid monsters. The first and most obvious problem is that it makes the game too easy, which many people have pointed out. But my biggest issue is not mainly how easy it is. It is important, but it's that it makes monsters feel pathetic, weak, and bland. And it makes knockdowns where you get to do damage uncontested feel less special and impactful. In previous generation, for examples, Monster Hunter GU, you had to play around the monster's attacks and sneak in hits in between the monster's attacks. The monster dictated the flow of the battle instead of the player, letting the monster receive the spotlight, pushing the hunter onto their back foot and testing them to really hold on. And then minutes into the hunt, the hunter's strike to the monster's legs topple it, and the power balance gets flipped completely 180 degrees, and that was the time to strike. Get your spotlight of the dance to assert your dominance as a hunter, and the cycle would begin anew. So by having less time to do uncontested damage, and less time in the spotlight in older games, it made the experience itself more enjoyable and exciting. Moving on to the second most important part of hunting, the preparation. Prep came in many ways in old games, such as Generations Ultimate. Gathering materials for potions, rations, traps, and gadgets like flash bombs and sonic bombs. hunting weaker monsters for their precious pelt and scales to craft new powerful armor and weapons, and ultimately organizing your inventory and armor set before setting out to hunt. Prep in Monster Hunter Wilds is pretty much non-existent and not needed at all. You can quickly grab materials such as herbs and honey from extremely far away using the grappling hook, removing all needs for healing preparations as you grapple everything you need while slogging through the railroaded story. We'll get to that. You don't need gadgets to help you in the hunt because the hunt itself presents very little threat. Another impact of a very easy fight is the lack of attentions you need to pay your armor set and weapon, making that aspect of prep unimportant as well. You might think, hey, that sounds great, I don't need to spend time grinding before a hunt. Isn't that a quality of life thing, quote unquote? This modern gaming buzzword is the reason why prepping for a hunt is dead. Quality of life in this instance removes an entire part of the core gameplay cycle of Monster Hunter. As I've stated, hunting is about prepping and then fighting. Imagine if a movie like The Lord of the Rings had no build-up or dialogue and it immediately starts at the emotional climax between Frodo and Sam. You wouldn't know what to think, would you? Why should I care about this fucking scene, or in our case, this fight, if I had zero build-up to it? Let's focus on a very controversial problem now, the difficulty. Some people have said, oh, it's because you've gotten better from previous games. Of course it's easy. You have experience. Or, oh, it's just low rank. All previous games low ranks were super easy like this as well. Or people actually defending the difficulty and saying it's not easy and it's actually difficult. Unfortunately, these are all false. After playing Monster Hunter Wilds until the end of Chapter 3, I've recently started a new save on Monster Hunter GU. Playing through the low rank, it was actually challenging. Yes, me who have played this series since childhood found this game's low rank actually pretty challenging. The 2-star hub urgent quest of hunting Blagonga. Yes, the big snow monkey who's also in Wilds and it's probably pathetic, actually almost got me and my wife to triple cart. It was the most fun hunt I've had since the last time I played old Monster Hunter, and it's also the reason why I realized the flaws of modern Monster Hunter and why I wanted to make this video. That low rank urgent Blagonga hunt made me respect the monster, and I like it way more than before because it doesn't feel like a punching bag. It doesn't feel pathetic and weak. It felt like a real, formidable creature, more than any of the monsters in WoW could ever dream of with their 4K textures. Not because their designs are bad, but because they do not receive their spotlight during hunts. Another aspect of Wilds that sticks out like a sore thumb is the emphasis on the world being alive and dynamic, while not only giving away the locations of monsters on the map at all times, but also giving your mount a auto-navigate button that you can use so you don't really even have to pay attention to the world. One thing that I think Monster Hunter World did really well was the ecology aspect, the way you had to explore the map and find monsters using their tracks. It was exceptional and it was cool. I don't have a problem with Monster Hunter Rise giving you the location of the monster immediately because there was no tracking system to speak of. And the game was focused way more on the arcadey aspect of Monster Hunter. Run into a new map and hunt monsters, rinse and repeat. Monster Hunter Wild's problem of the player not actually needing to engage with the basic tracking of targets is accentuated by the fact that the player doesn't even need to hold down the W key on their keyboard and navigate around. The mount automatically navigates the entire map for you. This is probably just another quote-unquote quality of life change that basically gets rid of the need for the player to actually even play the damn game for God's sake. What's next? The player having trouble completing their Tekken combo trial on the training dummy monsters? Let's roll in a quality of life change. Let's add auto-battling. This way you can get all the materials for your build without even playing. The last flaw I wanted to discuss was the railroading and the lack of freedom you get. In old Monster Hunter games, it was up to you to decide which quests you wanted to do, and when you wanted to do them. You made the plan to rise to the top of the HR and become, a top hunter, not the game. In Monster Hunter Wilds, to progress the story, you must sit through the dialogue and cutscenes with unskippable railroad sections just to rank up and continue the game. This would be fine if Monster Hunter was at all a game focused on story. But story was never even what Monster Hunter was about. Story was so irrelevant that Capcom made a new fucking spin-off series called Monster Hunter Stories. But I wouldn't be so opposed to the inclusion, of a story if it was actually good. But like all Monster Hunter games, the story falls short. In the case of Wilds, it actively hurts its gameplay because it is not something you can just ignore and pretend like it doesn't exist in previous titles. Overall, Monster Hunter Wilds falls short of my expectations and is another step deep into the direction that Monster Hunter World sent the series in. The obsession of shoving the story down the player's throat when it really isn't even needed were at all good. The if it ain't broke then fix it mindset with a change up of gameplay loop hitting the buzzword of quality of life, quote unquote, everything combines into the game that is Monster Hunter Wilds. The game where less would have been more.